Catherine quietly returns to work with a high-profile meeting.
And more questions surround Meghan Markle's loose fruit spread. Welcome to Heirs and Spares, the show that dives into the fascinating world of two of the most recognized royal couples from both sides of the Atlantic. I'm Kinsey Schofield, and I'll be bringing you updates on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle right here in California.
And we're not in a pub today. I'm Rupert Bell because Kinsey's returned back to California, but I'm still in the UK. It's pretty hot here, but I'll have all the news as usual on the Prince and Princess of Wales.
Okay, so I told you that I have a scoop, Rupert, and I wanted to get your reaction in real time. I wanted to see the reaction live. So one of my sources contacted me to tell me that the tone surrounding Meghan Markle's Rosé was, well, my tone perhaps was too silly. You know, I was making jokes about how Meghan's been whining for years and, you know, things like this. I want to tell you, and I have permission to repeat this, but I want to get your opinion on this. So my source told me it's not lost on Prince William that Meghan has launched an alcohol brand on his mother's birthday, the very mum he lost in a drink driving tragedy. When I asked if there was anger at Meghan for using Diana's birthday to promote her commercial products, they said it's what he's come to expect from her. He doesn't think much of her. And they said William and Catherine have been quite good at ignoring the Sussexes, but anything to do with his mother is still a tender spot. I felt like such an idiot that I didn't connect the dots, that this was being released on Princess Diana's birthday, who, you know, if you look at investigation after investigation, aside from a seatbelt, they say one of the reasons that she lost her life that night in that high-speed car chase was because the driver was impaired. I felt so stupid. You know, how is that not my first reaction to this? Do you have any reaction to those quotes?
Well, Meghan does what she wants to do. And yes, it is Diana's birthday, July the 1st, and you just go, you know, launching a rosé. Now, first up, a rosé. What is she, you know, is this suddenly been for how long has she been planning this rosé? Now, to produce wine and rosé, I mean, I know people who produce wine, rosé wine in France, and the work that they go into doing it. I know, as Dean Martin said, many of you think I'm a little old wine drinker, me, but I do like a glass of rosé, and the weather's been fabulous here, and I've been enjoying plenty of rosé. But the point being, it does take time. Has she been, and if she's putting a name to it, where is this vineyard? Let's see the provenance of her rosé. Is it just get some grape here, and mix it up and then come up with a blend that might be just a smidgen away from something that's already on the market? What she should be, if she's got any sense, promoting and trumpeting the fact that this is a specialist vineyard and give it that sort of exclusive feel. But as we've seen with a lot of her products, we don't actually know where they're coming from. As we're discovering potentially with the spread, we're not sure where the fruit comes from, what's going on, and where it's being made. It's all sort of smoke and mirrors. She's putting a label on it and saying, enjoy. To launch something that clearly is linked to her mother's, her mother-in-law, late mother-in-law's birthday, whereas you quite rightly say the driver was found to be impaired, just shows how often brain dead Meghan is about launching. She doesn't care. She's a bull in a china shop. She will go, right, and I will respond to this, respond to that, and don't care. It's tit for tat. She wants to always upstage. Whereas actually, this, if you know, Harry will probably be thinking this is a tough day, as anything like that with his mother's birthday, given his history and the problems that he's had to deal with from a mental health perspective with the loss of his mother at so age. But let's be honest, Meghan's all about Meghan. and Harry is going to have to toe the line here. They could have delayed it a week, could have delayed
Right.
it 2 weeks. What difference would it make? But
364 other days in a year.
yeah,
It's like this is
well, and there was one other day you couldn't do it. The
well, yeah,
day, unfortunately,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So we'll give.
Okay,
But
all right.
actually,
My math was off, but I mean, this
yeah,
is
yeah,
a harmless coincidence. Meghan has
yeah.
spent years drawing overt and implied parallels between herself and Diana. So to claim ignorance here is not a luxury she gets, in my opinion.
Well, she doesn't, and her husband should be telling her, please, not this day.
Mhm.
Not the rosé. Jam, fine. Tea, fine. Tablecloths, fine. And probably most other things are absolutely no issue. But suddenly she's now going into an alcohol brand which is new. We hadn't, that was not originally talked about. But the guff that you hear on the PR, basically she's saying lunchtimes turn into sort of evenings. Sounds like she wants everyone to get absolutely sloshed on her product. Because
Liquid
we
lunch? No, thank you.
well,
No, thank you.
well, well. I mean, I'm used to them. Where I come from, a lot of people call rosé sort of like well, where I come from, amongst the ladies of Warwickshire, it's known as Warwickshire mouthwash. But anyway, we digress. But rosé is an extremely popular drink, and I get it. But if she's selling it and joining a competitive marketplace, then it better be good. It
Yeah.
better be proper high end. But let's then hear about, because every time I talk to wine people, we hear about the grapes and we hear about the process, and they've got top people making it, top wine makers who know, because rosé is a blend, it's not straightforward, so it needs to be good, because bad rosé, sweet, and if it's really red, it's absolutely disgusting.
Oh
So
my gosh.
I will look forward to seeing what color it is, and whether it is a proper decent high end rosé. Not that I probably will be in a position to taste it, because I'm sure it's not going to be on sale in this country.
Yeah, it's super hard to sell alcohol online. But I did see an article from a PR expert who said if this rosé miraculously sells out in half an hour again, she's going to be known as the Duchess of Low Stock, because there's just no way that there's just no way that all of this is real. It feels like a marketing ploy. Well, that was breaking news. So let's get back
Mhm.
to our regularly
Yeah.
scheduled programming. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, resumed her official duties following a private meeting with Melinda Gates at Windsor Castle last week. This engagement marked Catherine's first official activity in her capacity as patron of the Royal Foundation. This is a charity that she leads alongside Prince William. Apparently, according to the court circular, Prince William was there along with Catherine to meet with Melinda Gates. She previously was married to Bill Gates and has been very outspoken about why she left his butt. But let's talk a little bit about that. I think this is good news for anybody that was worried about Catherine after missing Ascot. I wasn't that worried about it. I've always been under the impression that it's not her favorite place to be. She's not as enthusiastic as about the sport as she is about other sports. And so, yeah.
Her parents actually like horse racing. I think she knows it's part of her royal obligation to ask it, but obviously she'd had a busy weekend before. Having a meeting at Windsor sort of chimes with what she's able to do, which means she's not necessarily on the road, but she can go up the road from her house in the Great Park up to Windsor Castle. All very simple. Melinda Gates, I assume she wasn't at that Bezos thing that has just been going on over the weekend. I don't know whether Bill was there, but my goodness me, that was tacky. But I have give me strength. All that going on.
So Sally Bedell Smith, who's an author who has actually spent time with King Charles and Princess Diana. She sent me a picture of Meghan over the weekend on the beach from Meghan's Instagram, and she was like, I won't say what she said, but I replied, clearly Meghan trying to show us that she's not bitter that she wasn't invited to the Bezos wedding. And
Yeah,
Sally Bedell Smith made some comment about how you have to have a certain look. You have to have a certain look to be at the Bezos wedding, and Meghan Markle might not be able to apply to that. And by look, I mean
Yeah.
plastic. Plastic.
Well, I've got to admire the new Mrs. Bezos. I mean, she has taken
She has
her.
flotation devices. There are flotation devices
Well, I don't know,
everywhere
but
for her.
she took her role extremely seriously. It was tacky in the extreme. Anyway, we digress. Whereas Melinda and the Royal Foundation, obviously, if you're going to try and get funds for the Royal Foundation, you might as well go to a Gates because they're not short of a bob or two. So,
Although
and I know.
Bezos's ex-wife is notorious for giving away huge chunks of money,
Yeah,
so maybe a former Bezos.
well, you never know. But in terms of, the Gateses have shown throughout their life great philanthropy. Anyway, you know what the word I'm trying to
I
say. I'll
do.
get there in the end. But anyway, they have shown great willingness to support and try and give some of their money away. Melinda Gates is obviously very much fits that. With the fact that the Prince and Princess of Wales were at the meeting shows that they're a united force on this. And obviously, we don't know the terms and what was said at the meeting. But yes, she's out there, and hopefully she will be able to fit in. Well, look, I'm about to go to Wimbledon for 2 weeks, so I am pretty sure we will see. The Princess of Wales at Wimbledon. Maybe not this week. I mean, it's going to be sweltering hot in the first 2 days, but I could see her, the following week, easily be there. Well, finals weekend, which is in 2 weeks' time. I'm pretty sure she would probably be trying to be there for that and maybe another visit along the way because she does love going to Wimbledon. So I would expect to see her fulfilling her role that she has with the All England and Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club, to give it its full title, to be part of the championships, which, as I say, begin this week and carry on until Sunday, 2 weeks Sunday. So I expect to see her out and about, but it's good to see that she is having meetings. And obviously that was felt important enough to put into the court circular.
Yeah, Dickie Arbiter will say that they don't put enough in the court circular. So clearly it was important. Dickie Arbiter's like, they need to put all of Prince William's, engagements in the court circular so we can see how actually busy he is. Interesting because
I don't disagree with that actually,
yeah.
because occasionally there is this nickname going around of Work Shy Willie.
Mm.
So I think sometimes if he is holding a series of meetings, it doesn't mean he's out on the road because to do his work he has to hold meetings. It doesn't mean that he's twiddling his thumb or he's watching endless reruns of I don't know something. He's just
Suits.
with the children. Suits, well, maybe not, or Aston Villa's greatest hits, that sort of thing. I do that, but William's obviously got more important things to be doing with his time. So I think I don't disagree with Dickie's sentiment there that if there is, here staged a series of meetings, then okay, we don't have to know exactly what they are, but that would actually make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also interesting because Melinda Gates has been outspoken about how she really was frustrated by Bill Gates' association with Jeffrey Epstein. So interesting how is all because the
Well,
stories.
there's
Well, last week, one of the stories I couldn't believe I had to talk about more than once was this story about how Prince William didn't was going to ban Prince Andrew from coming back to work. I mean, how do you spell duh in every single
yeah.
language that ever existed? Because I was like, this is a non-story. His alleged victim is no longer with us.
Yeah.
Like no, absolutely not. He's not coming back to work. I mean, sometimes it just feels silly having to say some of these things out loud or put it in writing.
Yeah. Prince Andrew is completely persona non grata. And there's been talk about William. What's he going to do with the HRH titles of Archie and Lilibet? When he ascends to the throne on the death of his father, and
Yeah,
all
like
sorts
that's
of
going to be
stuff.
his number one priority.
Well, I know he will have more important things to worry about, but actually, there's what they call London Bridge, which is the sort of for the death of the monarch. That is what swings into action. Operation London Bridge. I'm sure it's been modified, but we're hearing talk that the king he wants Harry to be at it, but of course he wants him to be. He's his son, for
Yeah,
goodness sake.
right.
So
The bigger
it's
story would
nothing.
be if he wasn't there.
Yeah, it and that would be the sadness if he wasn't there. If he couldn't actually attend his father's funeral, it would be more of a story than him not being there. But obviously, God knows when. God only knows when this is likely to be. So you can only say, as and when it happens. We don't know what water will have gone under what bridge between now and then to whether it's affected some sort of reunion. Things are in a different climate. You don't know. But at the moment, I'm sure the king would desperately want, would expect his son to be at his funeral, and so therefore will be put into whatever plan is in place that he will be attending and assuming to be attending with his with the king's grandchildren as well.
All right, this story is a little naughty. Not something you and I
Okay.
would typically discuss, but it made me laugh so much that I had to include it. Two Made in Chelsea stars expecting their first baby visited Buckingham Palace to celebrate the King's Trust charity. And then this was a gala attended by King Charles. A lot of us saw images from this event because he was standing there with George and Amal Clooney, which everybody that put everybody's antennas up because George and Amal are supposed to be Harry and Meghan's friends, and it just really gives you an idea of the how Harry and Meghan have alienated so many people, important people, by going after the British royal family. But these Made in Chelsea stars posted their own version of Meghan's Baby Momma dance video on the steps of the grand staircase at Buckingham Palace. Now, this was a rare moment when it comes to the royal family showing any sort of kind of piffy sense of humor on social media, because they post this video and they're like, we're not supposed to record in Buckingham Palace, and they're dancing to the Baby Mama video. And Buckingham Palace, which is a picture, by the way, right now of King Charles and Queen Camilla as the icon, replies, "We see you," in the comment section with eyeballs and a winking emoji. I thought this is so fun, such a rare personality we see from whoever runs the Buckingham or the royal family official accounts. But like, it's sort of naughty and cute. It's not a swipe at Harry and Meghan, but the fact that it was acknowledged at all cracks me up.
Well, I think they knew what they were doing. Come on, Kinsey. Come on. We've got people, pregnant woman dancing to a video. I mean, okay, it wasn't in the hospital or wherever it was that Meghan's video was. And yes, it's all a bit cheeky. I mean, I must admit, I've never watched a single Made in
No,
Chelsea.
I
I'm
have
not
no
the
idea.
well.
I know that Meghan Markle wanted to be on that show when she was trying to infiltrate London society. She met with some publicists and met with some people and told one, I think it was somebody that worked for The Sun, actually, in the entertainment department, that she'd be willing to do that show. So I'm sure
Uh,
Meghan probably is familiar with them.
well, it's a sort of posh reality show. I mean, I'm
You're
not the
your own
market.
posh reality show.
They it's a sort of sets up. I mean, I know of people who've been in the program. I've met one or two people who've been in it, and it is what it is. But and this couple now, big radio DJ, Radio One, which is our big sort of young target station. It's not a bad look for the royal family. We're down and hit, but the timing of it is fairly obvious. We know what's going on here, Kinsey. It's a slight prop, but it does show in terms of. I'm sure before they posted it, I am sure the couple would have just said, "Do you mind us doing this?" and
Yeah.
would have shown it. They wouldn't have just. They would. Well, I assume they didn't just go, "We're posting this," because
Yeah,
if
because
they did,
I'm a real stickler for rules. I've always been. Like, I am a total narc. I love
well,
rules. And so there's that part, like that very huge chunk of me that wants to go, they broke the rules. They took pictures or video where they shouldn't have within the palace, the sacred palace. It's one of the reasons why I can't stand
mhm.
Meghan Markle. I love rules, and she doesn't like to follow the rules.
Well,
And
she follows her rules,
yeah,
and they're the only
exactly.
rules in town,
Yeah,
in
exactly.
her
But
eyes.
so when I initially saw this, I thought, oh my gosh, that's in such poor taste. But the fact that the royal family account commented on, it tells me that there was some permission given, or that maybe I just mentally need to think that there was some permission given, or some sort of collaboration that was official that would justify them doing this.
Well, I tell you why. The most important thing is it's given an awful lot of publicity to the King's Foundation. End of.
Mm.
That is probably, would most times as a reception for the King's Foundation probably goes under the radar. We don't know what's going on. But we certainly knew there was a reception for the King's Foundation, and that might pique people's curiosity as to what is the King's Foundation. So from that perspective, it's an absolute win-win. But obviously the subplot is definitely a little tongue-in-cheek, but it has given a degree of publicity to the King's Foundation that wasn't originally there, and great work that the King's Foundation has done. The Prince's Trust and everything that the King has done. He's really done some really unheralded work in that area for young people and everything, and people who've benefited from that kind of stuff. And to see a sort of slightly tongue-in-cheek, here we go up the stairs at Buckingham Palace, well, it's a bit of harmless fun, but the timing was perfect.
It really was. All right, let's discuss the story that broke over the weekend. I saw you briefly talk about this on Talk. Prince Harry says Meghan was the most trolled person in the world. This was at a surprise appearance in New York City. I'm not even going to say the name of the company or the event, because I think he's actually paid to do these things so that he gets these people the promotion that they want. Now, Harry vowed that both he and his wife will live by the truth. I almost choked on my own saliva when I read that line. I don't even think he can spell truth at this point. Whatever you put out there, you get back. That's the second time I almost died by choking on my tongue.
Yeah.
Karma, we've seen karma for you and Meghan over the last few years, Prince Harry. He said, one of the reasons why the digital world was so important to us is because my wife in 2018 was the most trolled person in the world. There was a lived experience, but at no point did we suddenly think, okay, we'll take this industry on. But in 2020, Meghan claimed in 2019 she was the most trolled person in the entire world, male or female. And she told this to a group of little girls who have it much worse than she does, still going to school every day, dealing with little girl things. There's Meghan Markle, the perpetual victim. And you know what happened in 2018, Rupert? I fell in love with Meghan Markle. I loved Meghan Markle. In 2018, I was sneaking Meghan Markle stories left and right into my local news morning show in New Orleans, Louisiana. She was not the most trolled person in 2018.
No, when she got married, there was nothing but goodwill towards her. There is no two ways about it. People may have been wanting to find out more about her, but having been at the wedding and around, Windsor and everything, and the outpouring of affection, it was all positive. So you've got to put a lie through that. There was a believing that she was. Harry's finally found true love. Happy days. She's a bit, off piece in the sense that certainly not traditional. Looking at what the Prince of Wales
and it
married.
was also not traditional for Harry. He had paraded a bunch of blondes in front of.
Yeah. One talking about made in Chelsea. One was called Chelsea.
Yeah.
I think she dodged a bullet there. So I'm told. But the fact of the matter is, it is the trolling happened later when the rumours started to come about, and to live by their truth. The trouble is, their truth prompted the Queen to say recollections may vary, and that is the big problem for Meghan and Harry. They are living in a world where they live in a bubble, and they're beginning to believe their own stories. And I don't know whether I saw a clip on social media at this thing that he went to in New York. And I mean, he got so lost up his own word salad, I'm not even sure he knew what he was talking about. And that was saying something. So I'm sure everything is but it almost just goes over your head. because actually what he's saying is just talking, but he's not actually telling us what to do about it.
Well,
It's all right.
he also doesn't, you know, put your money where your mouth is. You have one of the most toxic fan bases on the internet. You know, why don't you start by rallying your crew and say, we're going to lead with kindness. We're not going to talk this. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to harass people anymore. They allow these people to torment each other on the internet and then act completely oblivious to it when we know that both of them have burner accounts and they scroll through social media religiously themselves. So we know that they're familiar with the attacks that their fans do, you know, do to other people and to people that are critical of them. But I saw you use this word on talk and I thought it was really important. Victim fatigue. Break that down for me.
Well, it's basically, you know, the way I was going to have to think what I actually said. You know, occasionally I'm not even sure I know. I've entered the world of
Oh,
Harry,
you
but
said
victim
Prince
fatigue.
Harry, victim, there's victim fatigue surrounding
Yeah,
him.
because I think we are getting fed up that he's always been playing the victim. So that, in a sense, is that all of us are just saying, how much longer can you keep on playing the victim? When are you going to stand up and saying, right, my past is done. We're going to kick on. We're going to be, I'm 40, whatever it is now. Let's really kick on now, and the whatever happened before. But the more they keep doing the woe is me, the more we just go, oh, good. When's this going to stop?
But and
When's he
also,
actually?
is it hard for us to digest this victim mentality when we watch Meghan Markle get so many opportunities, even after failing? You know, Spotify, the return on investment wasn't there. Spotify cuts ties with Harry and Meghan, and one of their most important employees and executives calls them, you know what, grifter.
Right.
Then Limonada swoops in, and we
Yeah.
see and we watch Meghan's podcast fall off the charts after somebody gives her another opportunity after she fails with Spotify. We watched the content that she developed with Netflix and Just Meghan, her With Love Meghan series, and it was globally critically slammed. And then she comes out and does a victory lap for season 2. I think it's hard to believe that she is this victim and that we should all sympathize because she's been so bullied when she's continuously given opportunities that we know she's been given because of her proximity to the British royal family.
She's got no reason to call herself a victim. She's living in a socking great big villa with all the accompaniments that goes with that, which is how most of us don't live. Great big 13-room, rows of staff, no doubt, minding and managing her life. The staff may be a movable feast, but there is staff there managing their life. So she's got nothing to complain about. She should be going, wow, I've come from, my dad worked hard, gave us an opportunity, and now look, I should be thinking, thank my lucky stars, I've got everything I need. But she's always going, you know, over this endless, everything's so perfect. I've got the best husband in the world. I've got the best children in the world. You know, oh, give us a break. Just lead your life and don't need to ram home how
But they're also
wonderfully.
telling us how that she's a victim while she's doing
Well,
that at the same time. Well, it's the exact same thing that happened a few weeks ago, Rupert. Do you remember this? Meghan goes on Jamie Kern-Lima's podcast and says she's in her honeymoon phase. Days later, Prince Harry goes on the BBC and he's clearly miserable and says he fears for his life. I mean, it's the mess. It's Meghan Markle telling Fast Company magazine, then telling Tina Knowles on her podcast, I'm pausing as ever. I need to take a step back and determine what it truly can become. I'm not restocking. Days later, announcing on Instagram, guys, I'm restocking. It's the mixed messaging. It is so messy that you think that it's amateur hour.
well, and aren't they supposed to have a highly sophisticated PR team behind them? Because, we know that when they were over here, she doesn't listen.
Yeah.
She doesn't take advice. So that's where the problem is. But actually, she needs someone to say, listen, woman, politely, you need to take stock here and let's rebrand it, but let us control it. And we'll do it in a really good old-fashioned PR way, but make sure that everything is worked out. So when we go with As Ever again, then we've got everything, that we actually aren't suddenly running out of stock, that we are actually in a position to celebrate and get this working. But if it's a rush job, how many bottles of rosé will be out there? Will it fly off the shelves? I mean, you can't buy it in a shop, can you? But
No.
whatever,
But
it
also
is.
this is the same distributor that does Barry Manilow's wine. So I feel like they're going to have a realistic idea of how much stock is truly needed. They have done this before. I would suggest even experts. They were near this vineyard was nearly destroyed in some of the fires. Feels like there's always fires up north, but they were nearly destroyed in some of the fires, and the way that they crawled out on the other side was to do these high profile collaborations with not only celebrities but some sports teams, and they've made a name for themselves with these collaborations, and I feel like they're going to have a realistic idea of how much product needs to exist. So if she were to sell out immediately, then I would suggest this is just another one of and that this PR expert recently said that too. We're going to lose faith in her. We're going to stop trusting her. It doesn't look real. It doesn't look authentic. Either you have the worst people surrounding you and working with you, or you're lying.
Well, this is the problem, and I think people are just getting tired of the mixed messaging, and that's where the sort of victim fatigue. When are they going to stop being the victim and feeling, that everything is, they make their own bed. They've made their own bed. They have now got to say, right, it's not the royal family's fault anymore. We've got nothing to do with them. This is our life, and we've been away long enough now that we have been able to plan to do what we need to do. So that's where I get exasperated, because when are they actually going to say it's our bed and we're lying in it and we're going to get on with it, and we haven't got the royal family is irrelevant to us. But that's the problem.
Can I
Yes.
ask you a question? Because I totally agree with what you're saying. But I see sometimes, and I don't know how many of these interviews you're forced to watch for work, but I see sometimes Meghan trying to take the victimhood narrative and turn it into the overcoming. Like, I've overcome that. So there's in the last episode with Emma, whatever, in the last podcast she did, Meghan says to Emma, when I was acting, it was a different time. I didn't get a lot of roles because I was biracial. And Emma's like, what? Really? And Meghan's like, yeah, I was biracial. You're forgetting this is a different time. So then within a matter of minutes, she also says people couldn't decide if I was Black, people couldn't decide if I was white. I kind of came off as Hispanic, so I'd be sent for 30 different roles. And even though I was sent for 30 different roles, that could still be 30 different no's, where you're sitting that back there going like, well, wait, aren't the odds greater for you if people can't determine what your race is? And anyway, so she contradicts herself within seconds, but I do get the sense that she's in the way she speaks, she's trying to convince us that she's using this to say, and look at me now. Do you ever get that when you watch her clips?
Well, I get exasperated because I just sort of think it's fake. That's what I look at. That's my overriding impression is I don't actually, I, I can't warm to when you talk to people or hear people, you think, okay, that's fine because they can put it over. If you're an actress or an actor, you go knowing that rejection is part and parcel of the job, unless you are an absolute A-list where you get sent a script and you more or less, it's a shoe-in. Every other actor has to go and do a screen test, actor, actress. I mean, one of the reasons why I never wanted to tread the boards, I mean, I did think about it. I mean, I think, oh, not a chance here. I mean, I've had one taste of going for an audition.
Oh, I
when
know
I
about
auditioned,
this.
yeah, which was
Tell it, say it again, say it again.
which was auditioning for The Crown as a race commentator, because obviously that's my main job. My eldest son, who now lives in Los Angeles, said, Dad, fancy coming along for an audition to go and be a race commentator? You know, there's a casting call at this place in Soho. So I just done 3 hours of tennis commentary, rock up to this casting studio, and as everybody else, I'm basically dressed like this, very informal. But I walk into this sea of professional actors, all dressed for the part, looking like they've been from cast of all about my age, dressed to go racing in the 60s.
Yeah.
Well, so, and then they're all sitting, not one of them knew anything about racing, and they're all talking. And I'm thinking, I keep stum here. I'm not saying anything because I'll just be made to look I don't want to say, well, I'm actually a race commentator.
Right.
So I go in and I do my commentary, which I give it the full Rupert Bell one, which if you've seen on Instagram, I tend to shout. If in doubt, shout. But what I needed to do, in homage to, we had a marvelous racecourse commentator here, sort of voice of racing in this country back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, called Peter O'Sullivan. And he spoke like this. So you'd go, and coming into the lead is Artivo, and here's the Royal Runner. Well, I'm really giving it the monotone, but he was actually brilliant. But I needed to give it the 60s sort of, not quite the Pathé News thing. So sadly, I suffered rejection by not ending up in series 3 of The Crown as a race commentator. I'm sure the person who got the part did it admirably, but that's my one experience. But if I was full time, being an actor, back to the Meghan thing, it's a tough gig because more often than not, you are getting rejection. And even though she got into Suits, I bet she would have been, if she hadn't got involved with Harry, would have still probably be having to audition. She would. There are very few actors and actresses, and you would know, living in Tinseltown, who get the script and saying, "It's yours, take it."
And Tom,
am I right there?
yeah, you are. And Tom Bauer said that whether she married Harry or not, she was being written out of Suits and she was going to be unemployed, and she was hitting that age, that weird age in Hollywood. And I know I like always sound so bitter when I talk about the way that they throw women away in Hollywood. Thank God for Nicole Kidman, who's really kind of changed the trajectory when it comes to women being able to gracefully age in Hollywood, even though I know she's had some work done. But Meghan was reaching that weird age in Hollywood where it's like, can you still be the sexy vixen or do you have to be the minivan mom?
But isn't that's been Hollywood?
Yeah.
No,
and
from
I'm just saying
time immemorial.
Yeah.
It is a tragedy because you've probably got a 10-year shop window when you are the hot new thing. Then suddenly you're in your 30s and suddenly you're no longer, and then up comes someone who's 23. But it was ever thus. And Nicole Kidman, I imagine she's had less work than the new Mrs. Bezos, but that's a work of art, that is, in all departments. But anyway, I have sympathy for actors and actresses, particularly actresses and actors. They sort of then they become the George Clooney, that sort of, Cary Grant took it to a new extreme when he was around. I loved him as an actor, but in the end, you think, ooh, when Roger Moore played
Marlon Brando, like towards the end.
Yeah, that last Tango in Paris, yes. But and Roger Moore playing, I think he was older than Sean Connery, and yet he was playing Bond in the 80s, and you go, that was A View to a Kill, and yes, but you go, 'twas ever thus in Hollywood. Men have always, and you can, it's not always a good look. But for actresses, I have a huge degree of sympathy, and even for Meghan, she would have had to do what everybody else, and it's a tough world, and you've got to know how to find a way to be popular, liked, but if you're difficult. And there's a choice between someone who's difficult and someone who's all right. I think I know where I'm going.
Yeah, well, that's why Val Kilmer, who I thought was an incredibly talented actor, lost his mojo because he was kind of difficult. Well, he was drama. He took himself very seriously and he turned a lot of people off. Now I just am gonna sit back and watch your face turn beet red as you get fired up over this next conversation. Just what is Meghan Markle trying to hide after months of fruitless investigation? This is from the Daily Mail. and I have 6 minutes with you on this topic, and then you have to leave me for another important engagement because you're a VIP. There's no indication on the label of Meghan's fruit spread as to where it's actually made. You mentioned this a few minutes earlier. One expert has gone so far as to describe it purposefully vague. No one in the industry could shed any light on where the spread comes from the berries it contains all the way to its production sites. It leads to an almost inevitable question: what is Meghan trying to hide? It's possible the berries are picked in one place, trucked to a jam factory miles away, then put on another truck and sent to a shipment center. That's a large carbon footprint for each tiny jar. They're saying perhaps this is why Meghan doesn't want people to know. Another grower suggested berries may be getting picked by illegal migrants who flood into California, mostly from Mexico during harvest season. They also mentioned I skipped over this, but when it comes to Meghan's large carbon, or the potential large carbon footprint, they did say Ever's elaborate packaging is an issue. And this is the packaging she says kept her up at night. They said there's too much. There's styrofoam. It's not very, it's not very climate change friendly. And they did say that that was an issue. But we've seen Meghan step away from the climate change thing ever since she took that private jet, thanks to George Clooney, for her baby shower in New York that cost a fortune. We haven't really, it's Prince Harry that's the face of Travelist, that's doing, that flies to Shanghai to talk about our carbon footprint. So you mentioned it earlier, just the lack of Meghan's clarity when it comes to the products being made. I guess I'm not bothered by it because I was never going to put it in my mouth,
Well, no. Here's the thing. When she launched it, and we got those 16 people got the jams, it was a jam made at home, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So
Kris Jenner, Chrissy Teigen. Yes.
So if you've come up with something, then people initially would have said, well, that's what we're expecting to get. Now we've got a spread, which is basically gloop, right? All right. Now, as you know, I did send you a video of me in my red currant bush the other day.
You did.
And I have picked, there will be another picking in a week's time. So I got the first lot in, which eventually I will probably end up making about 10 jars of red currant jelly, which will survive for another year, for me for a year to have with my lamb or whatever I choose to do with it. But at least I know where it's come from. She is trying to make a play that this is really homemade. Now, once things get too big, clearly you do then have to outsource. But let's, for goodness sake, hear about it. This is what we are doing. My raspberries are from, I don't know, but they're from an organic farm. Then they go, but the point is she wants to make it look it's homemade and sell the
right. There's the video of her and Lily in the kitchen. I think that was when she goes, oh, it's so beautiful. Lily says something like, oh, it's so beautiful. I do think you're right that her intentions are to make, when she told the Drew Barrymore show that Archie and Lily helped make all the cookies that she brought for them. There is an attempt at making it look like things are homemade, and it's clearly not homemade.
And that's so look, we know that she's not going to be able to make, if she's going to put things out there on the As Ever website, she's not going to be doing it in her kitchen at home because she hasn't got the capacity. But there are ice cream manufacturers, people around here, they set up a machine, a proper setup, maybe somewhere. And so that's where I am coming from, is that she is pretending it's homemade, but it's no more homemade. Whereas I can guarantee you, Kinsey, if I have a spare jar next time you're over, I will bring you, say in the autumn when I've made it, because when I make my red currant jelly, I do have to get the trouble and strife out of the house, because if the sugar boils over, my ovens get absolutely, my cooker, so the trouble and strife has to be out of the house for a long time while I'm boiling it, and then I'm standing over it so it doesn't blow over.
Yeah.
But my wife is driven mad by my red currant. It takes up too much room, and and I say, don't touch my red currants. It's my one little thing. But I know my 10 jars, I will be happy. But there's a lot of trauma and heartache that goes into my 10 jars of red currant jelly. For Meghan, she made 16 and she might have made them at home because lots of people, I know lots of people who make marmalade, who make jam, we're in raspberry and strawberry season, and some people have got lovely big raspberry cages and probably do turn some of it into jam.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo. And then they'll give it around to friends. But she needs thousands of these jars, so you know it's been done in a bottling and fruit place, processing it through, so it's as much homemade, but we don't even know what the recipe is. It's
Right.
turned from jam to spread. So anyway, enough of my anyway, it's been a traumatic year in the garden. But anyway, my red currants have offered some comfort and solace after the destruction the other day of my dwarf beans and my onions.
No. Well,
By
thoughts and
some
prayers. Thoughts and prayers to your dwellings. But it's time for you to go. So thank you so
yeah.
much for your time today. Agree with us, disagree with us, let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend, Rupert Bell. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Yep, well, I've got a week at Wimbledon, so and when I talk to you next week, I'll come back with Wimbledon gossip, and hopefully I will have seen the Princess of Wales at SW19.
Oh my gosh, I hope so too. Text me if you see her when you're there, if she's there.
You'll know before I will because it'll be on every news outlet before you can say 40 love.
Okay, all right. Talk to you soon. Bye.